what it is, but they were like, he's swinging the mic and catching it and doing all this shit. I was tired like watching it. Like I was like, God, I feel a little winded.
That's wild.
Yeah, isn't it nuts?
That's nuts because they're all like deaf too. Like I'm not even joking. Like, you can look this up.
They blew their ears out. Yeah.
If somebody bet me money what you were gonna say after that, it would not have been deaf. But I was
legends.
They're so talented.
Yeah. Anything. No. They are fucking deaf, dumb, and blind. Let me tell you, they had nothing.
Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
Why you said that like it was your kink. And kudos to me. They're twins. What's up, guys? How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for doing this. Can I tell you how I found you guys? And I only have to say this because it never usually works, but it was Spotify had recommended, like, you know, that like you might like or whatever the Genius thing was.
Yeah.
I accidentally fucking hit it. And your band came up, and then I was like, "Oh no, I didn't mean to hit that button." And then it started. One of the songs started playing, and I was like, "Or did I?" and that was it. That's the only time it's ever worked for me. By the way, like 9 times out of 10, it's just pure trash.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, "Oh, this is fucking gold." So you guys, that's how I wound up discovering you guys.
So every once in a while, Spotify does something good for artists. Occasionally.
Occasionally. I just, not that I'm pitching for them or anything. I'm just saying, like, imagine that was my whole thing. I was like, guys, Spotify hired me to soften their image to you and to other artists. So it's the same line I deliver to everybody. I'm like, so I was hitting Genius. And then this is why I'm glitching. He's like, he's not even real.
He's just part of the algorithm.
Yeah. But so I got to ask you a question. I haven't asked any other musicians this before, but I was curious because when you look up your stuff, like right in the bio on Google, it says alternative pop band. Do you guys get to how would you classify your music? Do you guys get to choose what you're classified as, or is that up to the people or your people or what Google throws it out there?
Probably because we don't have people. It's very. We've kind of made songs all over the place in terms of genre and stuff like that.
That's what I thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, most of the time artists do have teams around them that say, like, that song you've been working on, it's kind of like a little bit like folky, or like a little bit maybe the drum machine pulls you away from what you normally sound like. But we don't have that. So in the case of us, we just say like indie pop.
Alternative. Yeah, it's what, you go on Wikipedia and it tells you what that means and you go, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
that works.
Okay, cool. That's what I was kind of assuming, but I wasn't sure if like you guys got to decide or if whatever. But that is kind of interesting. Yeah, because I don't know what it necessarily means either. Like I would go like, oh yeah, sure, that sounds like it could be it. But you guys have such a wide range of like different style music and stuff. So
and we're in a post Imagine Dragons world where like you can just call yourself. I mean, let's be honest. Like, they were the straw that broke the genre's back. You know what I mean? It's just it doesn't exist anymore. It's whatever. Oh
my god. You do realize that is what I'm going to now title the podcast is Post Imagine Dragons World. That is hilarious. Oh, I don't even quite know what that means, but I love it. So fucking great. And so what was the when did you guys start doing music, and was it just kind of like, is it in your family? Like how did you guys stumble into it?
It's a little in our family. Like on our mom's grandfather was like super talented painter and musician.
Wow.
But kind of a interesting dude. Kind of reclusive, but that's on that side, and our parents were really into a lot of out there music when they were younger and shared a lot of cool music with us when we were kids and stuff like that. So
sweet.
That was probably the start of it.
Yeah.
And our sister was a good singer and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a little in the family, but it wasn't like a family of musicians or anything.
Right.
Did one of you gravitate towards it first and then like pull the other one along, or?
we're the twins that get along.
Yeah.
You know, like some really don't get along. We get along pretty well. We've always kind of done things together. So yeah.
Actually, I think grade 5. So when we were like 8, 9, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that. We decided for whatever reason, we're gonna be a band. and we're like, Noah's gonna play the drums, and I should have chosen the guitar, but I'm like, and I'm gonna play the bass. Which makes if you're trying to start a band, you definitely need like a piano or a guitarist. But I remember we actually did that.
Rhythm section, vocals.
All groove all the time, nothing else.
That'd be great if you guys just pick people out of the audience randomly. Like, can you kind of play like any other? Yeah, we'll just come in. We got everything else covered. Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Does your sister ever sing with you guys?
No. I don't know. I think it wasn't for like she's in medicine and stuff. It wasn't like her thing. She's really cool, talented. Though. She's a great singer, but
oh, nice.
You know,
like how you said she's in medicine, begrudging. She's doing something with her. I don't know. I can't.
Everyone else does the thing where they're like, yeah, those two, they're in music, so I do that to them. You know, he's a lawyer. You know.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. I thrive on spite too. So it's pretty great.
Yeah.
The other thing that I like, and I don't want to jump too far ahead because I still want to talk about like how you got started and shit, but I'm getting into the clips that you're posting because you guys started a podcast, I guess, just talking about music and shooting the shit kind of as you would normally, right?
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what it was. And our friend who has a podcast was like, I listened to you two in the car talk, and I'm like, this is entertaining. You should just film. You should
really is.
Camera. But yeah, and that's what we figured. We will just start doing this and start kind of talking. So
nice. Do you go into it with like stuff you've already talked about and then go, we should get this, or do you start fresh every time?
It's a little more edited than say this, which is like a totally free flow podcast. We talked for an hour, let's say, and we got it down to 15 minutes. So like we'll kind of cut out the uhs and the uhs and the all that stuff and sort of get to the tight bit, but maybe we'll let it run longer later as we get more comfortable on camera. But
also might call this show Get to the Tight Bit. The names keep coming. I wish we would do the same thing too. I would love to. I talk for an hour or whatever, and then we don't get it down to anything. Like it would be nice. Yeah. I would love to do that at some point. But it just does what it does. But I've listened to some of your stuff though, man, and your friend was dead on accurate, man. It's really like. I like the idea of musicians kind of talking about other genres of music or their favorite albums and stuff like that. Cause like as a music nerd too, like that interests me. And I'm sure that's why people like to listen to comedians shoot the shit about other comics, but it's very rare. Like you don't see a lot of like musicians do that kind of stuff.
That's true. Yeah. Even when we were thinking about doing it, we were just kind of looking into other musicians are other people doing this, but there's not a whole lot of content talking about, musicians again, talking about other musicians. I don't know if it just might be, maybe there's a fear element of coming across incredibly spiteful, the word used earlier. Like maybe we'll talk about this. Like we talked about Michael Jackson and maybe there's a song we don't like. And then people are like, well, Michael Jackson sold 80 million records.
Yeah. Who the hell are you?
Yeah.
There's always going to be people like that though too, who are just like, who the fuck do they think? As if Michael needs defending. He's dead, but I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like that's like,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's when I did look on, you look at the YouTube or other places, what the people talking about music seem to be like the music school graduates who are like super talented and they talk about the technicals and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's really dry or it's really, pretentious, and I don't feel like that's how most people talk about movies and music and comedy. They just shoot the shit, but there's no one doing that. They're just talking about like the circle of fifths and stuff. It's like, well, that's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about like the beat or the groove or the lyrics. So that was the whole thing, was like, let's just the way we normally talk about a record, like, because when you hear a bad song, you don't go like, oh, and then the minor key is what ruined it. You just go, the song sucked is what you say, you just which is a lot. It's just the gut feeling you have when you hear something you like or don't like.
Yeah, it's really annoying when people want you to explain, especially if you're an artist of any kind. When people talk to you about a thing, you can tell when they want you to really like get underneath it and like say all this fancy shit. And I agree with you, dude, where you just kind of like, I really like the song. Like, oh, what about it do you like? I don't know. I think it makes me happy.
Yeah.
Before I was sad, heard the song, now I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm a pretty simple person.
Yeah.
Do you have like, I mean, obviously you have influences, but is there anybody that you emulated in the beginning where you were like really, really heavily like, oh, we kind of sound like them, we should pull back? Or because I couldn't tell. I really don't think. I think you guys sound completely unique. Like I don't know what you would.
I appreciate that. I mean, from day one, we were writing. You know, I know a lot of people start bands and they start covering immediately, because that's just how you learn. And right out the gate, Luke and I, and then our first band was with a friend of ours who was a guitarist, and it was just you just write new stuff. It was never about trying to, because even if you were trying to emulate someone, you'd be like, hey, let's do our version of that,
right?
But early on, it would be like what Queen,
Queen, ELO,
Roxy
Music,
Roxy Music, Bowie.
Oh, dude, love Roxy Music.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was literally just gonna say the same things to you. No one ever fucking mentions Roxy Music.
Yeah,
that's great.
And then, of course, like early 2000s, like there were a ton of great alt bands that were out at the time that were, we were into, like Killers, The Strokes.
Oh yeah,
Coldplay, stuff like that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Yeah, I was when I was listening to your stuff, I was like, usually I can kind of pinpoint like who, when one song sounds kind of like another or whatever. But you guys, I don't think I've ever heard anything like your stuff, so it's pretty sweet.
Cool. That's
really cool. Do you write you write lyrically first, or do you switch and go music for? Or how does it work?
It's usually music first.
Yeah.
And because we just kind of have our own makeshift sort of studio setup. It'll usually be
nice.
Noah or myself we'll go on a piano and just start rolling and kind of cobble together the basis of a track. And then from there, usually I'll just plug in a mic and start, messing around with random melodies and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, it definitely almost always starts with some sort of the bones of the music track, not the lyrics. Yeah.
That's not. You guys are from Alberta, Canada, and I'm curious, is there any influence from where you grew up in your like? Is there like a no, not at all. Okay, gotcha.
Well,
he's shaking his head.
No, I mean, here's the thing. Alberta does have a good music scene, but it's a much more like Alberta being the Texas of Canada is the thing that gets thrown out. And it's true. It is definitely, there's a great country scene in Alberta, and great like folk scene. Like those two are huge. But our biggest listening base is like East Coast. They're all on the East Coast.
It's actually all East Coast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So not locally, maybe Canada in general. Like we loved Arcade Fire when we were younger and stuff like that.
Oh,
yeah.
So, all 80 of them.
Yeah, exactly. We were like, we could be in Arcade Fire one day.
They wouldn't even know. You guys could just sneak in when they're on stage and then just start like, nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Like you guys need another bass when they accept an award. Like, is it ever going to stop?
That's great. So generally, there's great Canadian musicians that influence us, but the scene itself never necessarily played a part.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's interesting because like we were talking a little bit about it backstage, but Canada's like I still consider you guys the good country, just because we're like you guys had your little tantrum that you threw with your truckers and shit.
Yeah.
But we got you beat. We got years of being pieces of shit, like way ahead of you. You guys have like adorable Mounties, and we have cops that like literally shoot innocent people. So it's you guys have a little ways to go.
Yeah, you guys are the goats. the goat. When it comes to this stuff.
You guys are the goats of abusive aggro male horseshit. Thank you. Yeah, America. But you guys had that video. So talk about a little bit about the Canadian flag and how it kind of.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, speaking of that situation with the freedom convoys, what they call it, of course, because it was all about freedom, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the convoy, they kind of stole the Canadian flag from Canada a little bit. They like held it ransom for that period of time. I think that was last February. They all kind of marched down to Ottawa and put up big Canada flags and said we're not leaving until I guess they didn't have to wear their masks or something.
Yeah.
We're not totally sure.
Still unclear exactly on what the deal was.
Yeah,
But
people said like Occupy Wall Street was confusing, but this fucking thing took like I have no idea what they wanted.
Yeah, they just all of it. They wanted all of it.
Like we want our truck nuts, and we want them, and they were like, "What? We haven't said that.
We didn't take those away.
Yeah, nobody take them. Fuck it."
Yeah, so they were protesting something or other. I don't know, but they stole the Canadian flag. Like they made it the symbol of their movement, and then we were shooting a video a couple months later, and we had a huge Canadian flag right behind us, and we realized there are probably at least a couple hundred people, maybe a couple thousand people that have seen this video and think we're like saying Freedom Convoy, which sucks. They stole the Canadian flag.
Yeah. It's so weird when stuff that like red hats. Who doesn't who didn't like wearing a fucking red hat or some little color?
Yeah.
And you cannot anymore. I have a Spider-Man hat because I'm a loser, but I have a Spider-Man hat that I cannot wear because I've literally on my butt, I'll be biking or whatever, and random just shore trash would wave to me. I live in a shore town in New Jersey. So they would wave and I'd be like, oh, that's not. And then I see they have a Trump flag on and I'm like, it says the whip. Not that I really want anybody to know it says that either, but it's kind of like the Spider-Man emblem. I'm like, no, I just didn't have sex in high school. That's what this means. It's not, it's not that I'm on your side, but yeah, it's so weird how something that was once an innocent object can become totally manipulated.
Totally. Yeah. It is pretty fascinating.
Did you pick up any odd trucker? Did you get any weird comments on the video? Yeah, man.
I remember one time, not in this because of the Freedom Convoy, but I remember a time, maybe a year or so, or maybe 2 years ago, we got an email from a guy from the East Coast of Canada that was saying I want to use one of your songs in this video. And then I checked him out and it's I can guarantee you that guy was down in Ottawa when the protests happened. It's always a scary thing when people are like, can we use your song for this thing? It's I gotta research. I gotta do something.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dude, during the pandemic when I needed shit done, if when things were slightly loosening up or whatever, I had to if I needed something done around the house or outside or whatever, before I hired somebody, I would try to find them on Facebook. And then see if they
background checks
100 because you don't because I did have one guy in the house who showed up in an American flag fucking whatever, and I was like, God damn it. And the entire time he was working in the backyard, it was freedom, country music, rock, whatever. And my neighbors must have been like, did he snap? What is he blasting? And I was like, no, I just don't want this guy to burn my fucking house down. So I'm letting him do whatever he's got to do. I don't like that shit.
Yeah. It's the worst.
And they're also getting way more clever, I feel because it used to be where I would just get your basic death threat and I'd be like, that's comforting. You know what I mean? At least I know where they're coming from. Yeah. And now I get messages from people that are like, hey man, how you doing? And then I'm just like, that is nice. And then I'll click on their profile and it's everything I'm not. And I'm like, they want to, because I've done that a couple times. I'm like, hey, or whatever, how are you or whatever? And they're like, you fucking mother piece of shit. And then you let them in your DMs and you're like, oh God. Fell for the old, how are you?
Yeah, the Trojan horse.
That was a Trojan horse right there. Yeah. I got a weird text the other day and it was like, hey, you missed my birthday. I'm upset with you. I'm like, what? Whose birthday did I miss? So I'm like, I feel bad. Now I'm starting to feel bad because I don't have the number saved. So I'm like, this person can't be that close to me. So I'm like, hey, so sorry about that. I swear to God, I just got a new phone. So I was like, new phone. I must have lost your number. So I'm like, who is this? It was a totally false person, trying to fish their way into your contacts.
It seems like when I was a kid, emails had the spam and phones were the real and it's flipped completely. Yeah. Legitimate business is done through emails. And if you get a phone number and you've never heard it before, you don't answer because it's just some crazy, whoever it is. It's in Canada, it's always a call from Montreal. Who knows where I don't know what's happening in Montreal, but
oh man. Yeah. It's weird when they can figure out what location you'll probably because I always if it comes from Los Angeles sometimes and anybody's actually giving a shit about me, but I'll be like, oh, LA, I should probably get this random number after having nothing going on for weeks. And then I'll be like, hello. And they're like, you know what I get a lot of? The college loan shit. now that the college stuff's going on.
Yeah.
So they're like, and they're leaving me messages, and I am a college dropout. So I'm like, I'll take whatever money you want to give back to me, but I didn't go for very long. So you might want to fucking rethink that there, Susan. So you guys have a new single coming out, and the album's coming out a year later. No, I'm sorry. You have the single coming out, but the album's coming out a year later.
Well, yeah, we're in like a weird, we're working on the album.
Okay.
And we're sort of in a limbo state of like, because of streaming and the way things have changed with releases, it's not like, you know, you might release a single and the album's not even done. And you're like, oh, that's the single on the album.
Right.
And this is pretty common. I mean, I know like Tame Impala. I don't know if you know Tame Impala.
I think so.
Anyway, it's a band. Kevin Parker. He released a single from his album, and then the album came out and the song had been changed. And then you go back and the single is different. Like he released it on streaming. It sounded a certain way, and then it was changed later. So there's all these kind of weird, because of the way things come out, everything's changed with that. So we're always trying to find what the right way to do this is. You know, you're kind of making it up as you go almost. We know we want to have an album coming out next year, but we're still sort of working our way through it. We released one of the singles from it. Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, I didn't realize. Now that you mention it, I have listened to some music where the single is there's something slight, but I always thought it was me because I'm like, man, I'm not remembering this correctly. And then, that makes a lot of sense to me now.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. I feel like I feel like that almost makes you want it more because it's like now it's an exclusive edition. And now like, oh, I need to go back and listen to the single and I can't just buy the album.
True.
So it might be, right?
True.
It might be a little more advantageous.
Yeah.
Would you ever add it as a bonus track?
Maybe. I know. Well, that's what we're doing with. We're gonna release a physical record. Soon here, and we'll just call it Retrofile Volume 1, basically.
Nice.
And it'll just be everything we've released up till now, and then the debut album will be Volume 2, even though it's our first album, because we've just released a ton of singles up till now. But it's an album's worth of material. So
yeah, absolutely.
You know, for the fans that want a physical copy, there you go. That's Volume 1, and then
right. Do you have like a definitive song, something that you? Because I always think about this whenever I have a band come on the show. I just always pick a few songs or a song that I find like that I really love, and then I'll toss it in the story. And you saw it, like you shared it or whatever. Yeah. And Freedom in Your Eyes was the one I chose for you guys. I love that song. But like, do you, as a band, do you guys like go like, ooh, wouldn't have picked that? You know what I mean? Like, do you have your favorites that represent you better? Or
well, it's funny because Luke even said it's funny he picked Freedom in Your Eyes. That's interesting because like we love Freedom in Your Eyes. I think it's a cool song.
Yeah, great.
It didn't seem to, certain things click more with a wider audience and some are more.
Okay.
But I find as a general rule of thumb, the stuff that clicks with a wider audience, they're not as diehard. And then the stuff that clicks with a small audience, it's like it becomes one of their favorite songs, but it doesn't click with the same number of people. I mean, 2 Words seems to be the one that resonated the most. It seems to have like double what everything else has.
Right.
And I get it. It's the most immediate, I think.
Right. Yeah, it is. And that was a close second. That was I was thinking about, but I Freedom in Your Eyes is one of those ones that I'll just be walking around and the chorus will pop into my head. And I'm like, oh yeah, nice.
Yeah. Sweet. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a great song. Are you looking forward? Are you going back out on the road to tour this new album? Because I know that everything's kind of changed, post-COVID, especially just the way people make stuff and then wind up selling it. Do you feel like that's the best way, still the best way to maybe go out and get your songs out there is to release something, tour, and then sell it that way, or different plan? Like what's your...
That's actually a really good question because we have a really weird approach to this. We've actually not played a live show since 2017, 2018. Yeah, we're entirely online.
Wow, that's great.
We're sort of more like a studio act. And the reason for that is that when we started sort of our journey in the music industry around 2014, we were playing tons of live shows. And then we were realizing as the industry changed to streaming, there was just less interest in general with going to see live performance for bands that hadn't already been established. I mean, so much of the world moved online. I guess maybe the thrill of going to see a local band wasn't there to the same extent. I don't know. Something's up.
Well, it also changed so fast. I mean, when we graduated high school, we were still printing CDs, printing off a bio, taking photos, packaging it up, and sending it to a radio station. And that's how we'd promote our music. When we graduated, and fast forward to now, and it's like, who cares about a radio station? Who cares about a CD? And who cares about a physical printed off photo? I mean, it's a completely different world. So,
I mean, long story short, we basically played a ton of shows and realized, why don't we just put out enough music that we can get to a point where when we actually play these shows, people actually know all of the songs.
That's great.
And maybe actually have an interest in them.
Yeah.
And generate some income on the front end of that so that we can actually put a good show on instead of just being like a bar band. Like put on something genuinely special. That makes us happy. Because we have done one tour of Western Canada and it's a slog. It is tough. Man. Canada is really, I would say Canada's probably the hardest country to tour in the world. It's so spread out. Well, because it's just so spread out. Yeah, right. I mean, like there's major cities, but they are really, really spread out. So, Toronto and Vancouver are the most populous cities. Well, those are on opposite ends of the country. And then from Vancouver, the next major city is us, Edmonton and Calgary, which is like, how long a drive is that?
8 hours.
Yeah, 9 hour drive. So it's a tough city to tour when you're independent and you're just driving along in your van kind of thing. So
totally.
I'd love to do it. I think ideally in like a year or two, I'd love to do a big tour of the East Coast, including the States.
Nice.
That would be the long-term goal. Yeah.
That's great, man. And it's really smart what you said too about the business kind of changing and stuff like that, because I think that's a way better way to do it. Build your following, whatever, and then when you go out to actually do your set, you're just confident enough where you're like, I know this is good. We're fucking great. We're gonna put on an awesome show, and then boom, right back to working on the inside and getting more stuff out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I think it's an easy mistake to make as an artist too, to get caught up in like, oh, here's how the industry works. But it's like your profession is making music. What you do after that is up to you. You got to find a way to find your audience and generate a living from it. But anyway, you can do that. I know there's bands that I've seen live where I'm like, oh, you guys kill live, and you genuinely have a unique thing going on, and that should be what you do all the time.
Right.
Whereas for us, I felt like our strong suit was songwriting and like the visual aesthetic and all that stuff. And that was just a creative space thing. It had nothing to do with necessarily going out and playing live. So just put all your eggs in that basket and build up from there. Yeah,
that's really fucking smart. Is there any possible, do you guys do streaming? Did you do any streaming stuff during the pandemic? Do you like doing that kind of thing or no?
We got invited to do one or two of those from because a bunch of companies popped up. They were like, oh, we're doing a streaming festival or something like that. And we never did it probably for the same reason. It was like, I don't know if we'll nail it. I just don't, I don't know. I don't like doing things just because it's the thing you're supposed to do. I don't want to just go play a gig because you play gigs, or take photos because you got to take some photos now. I don't know. I'd rather it all be some sort of, because if I wanted to just check boxes, I would have worked a different job. The whole point of being you want to create, you want to do unique things with everything that you do. So no, we never got into the streaming thing, but that's why we started the podcast. That's why we started doing that. How can we be in front of people more often, but not necessarily, because our writing process is so slow. How do we,
that's genius though. Do you find that you're teaching the industry more than the industry is teaching you now? Because even when I have conversations with, PR people or whatever I'm doing, I really find myself having to slowly explain to them almost everything. And I kind of want to be like, I know you fucking went to college. I know you make bank. How am I showing you how to, it's infuriating to me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we've actually more recently, in the last year or so, we've been very fortunate. Our music has reached a broader audience, a larger audience, especially in the streaming realms. And because of that, we've had some people sort of reach out to us, I'd say semi high profile industry individuals. And it's shocking sort of the conversations we have where they're saying, oh, well, we'll do this, this, and this. And it's like, that stuff hasn't been relevant for... It's very strange.
Yeah.
It is really it's one of the worst conversations to have, and I dread it every time. And I don't even begrudge anybody necessarily, because I feel like something I don't know, man. I see these people, they've got their offices, they work in really nice buildings, and I find myself, part of my brain going, how in the holy fucking hell are you still where you are? And then I'm also like, I guess I'm like, is it just this like belief system where if people believe you're doing the thing that works, then it must work, right? Like it's almost like I don't know, man. This business is so fucking weird. It's like
I think it's more that it's evolving so swiftly that the people that are able to manipulate it are so far ahead of the curve that nobody's able to teach it. So they're just like, hey, we want to talk to you because you're doing it right. Now let's deconstruct you and try to reconstruct, but that doesn't life doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing now with like artists popping off on TikTok, and it's like people working in the industry have no idea what's happening on TikTok. They're just like, oh, that guy's got numbers. Let's reach out to them, you know.
Yeah.
And some of, you know, I think the smart ones are realizing it's not worth it. It's really not worth it to jump on board with these guys unless they know what they're doing. Because a lot of the times, those new avenues open up, and if you're, you know, if you're willing to put in the legwork and do more than you might have normally had to sign to a label, let's say, you'll just have way more control and way more understanding as well of all of the steps, everything, every element of it, which is a better place to be in, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it is one of those things. The TikTok thing is confusing for comedians too, because you know, we also know that like there's so few, if you can squeeze in any way, shape, or form, it's like you're like, yeah, fucking do it. But the problem is like they may not have the experience to back it after the industry decides to pay attention.
Yeah.
So you have you almost as an artist, you have no choice though. You could literally like I've talked with people who've exploded and they're like, fuck, I don't know if I'm ready to do it. And you're like, you are, well, it's it for now. So do what you can with it, you know, and enjoy the ride for a bit. And maybe you'll never have to worry about it. Who knows? You know what I mean? But I know people who get swept up, and then if they decide to drop them because they don't have enough of, you know, a built up experience, whatever, they can't headline for too long. I remember doing a show with this dude, and he was just out of AGT, and they were like, and I was headlining, but they were like, you know, he had the AGT thing. So they were like, would you mind coming in and opening for him? You know, and I was like, yeah, I don't give a shit. So then went and opened for him and did my, you know, 25, 30 minutes or whatever, had a great time, huge audience, huge fucking turnout. And then he gets on and he does about the same as I did. And then for the rest of his time on stage, floundered and apologized profusely to his audience. And I was like, good fucking Lord, man. And the thing is, he was so likable that I'm good for, like, I'm glad they didn't like boo the shit out of him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they were like, oh, can we get the other guy back up? Which I hate, you know, it's always like a weird thing.
Yeah.
And then, but at the end of that, people still were around the fucking corner to get a photo with him. And in my head at the time, I was like, if I could just be that mediocre.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? It's the fame thing. It's you're on TV and it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah. There's I'm seeing clips now of musicians who will have that 15-second part of their song popular on a TikTok. All of a sudden they're selling tickets like crazy to their shows. And let's say they're the opener. People are leaving. Like they'll come and watch one song, basically, take the video of them there, and they just bounce. They leave. It's just it's crazy. It's cool because you're reaching a new audience.
Yeah.
But like any quick like burst of growth like that, where you're seeing a bunch of people, how many of them are legitimately interested in what you're doing, or how many of them are just hopping on the bandwagon for that little bit of time?
Right.
It's hard to know. You know?
It is. And the problem with like having like a lot of tools in your tool belt, which is always a great thing to have, is I feel like I'm constantly just fighting age. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad I've got all this stuff, but you're just getting older at the same time. And you also know that the industry doesn't give a shit. Not luckily for comedians, you can be like a fucking troglodyte, and people are going to be like, well, at least he's funny. You know, no one's really worrying too much. You know, we've all seen comedians.
Yeah.
But there's no, you know, Tom just left. He's insulted.
I'm out.
I was like, Tom's like, I won't stand for this. Bert Kreischer is an angel. He's a sweet man. Anybody be lucky. He's a really nice guy. I don't know why I just randomly picked Bert for no reason. He's doing well.
He's a big target.
Yeah, he's he's out there. Fuck. But yeah, it is kind of funny because you're like, oh, I'm so glad I have this dearth of experience and all that other shit. And then at the same time, you're like, oh, but I'm in my twilight, I guess. Not really. I'm just getting a little No, I appreciate that. No, I tend to, my brain tends to
also
drift
comedians
to
tend to age more like wine. I think the good ones, right? At least I think my favorite comedians tend to have gotten better, or at least more interesting with age, and like develop their own unique little idiosyncrasies. I think musicians do too. I just think music is a little more aesthetically driven.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
But,
and also like, there's that whole trend of, I don't know what it is. I feel like there's this whole thing where like, the whole thing about 27 years old, the 27 curse or whatever. You're 27, you wind up dying. You're like all those guys.
Yeah.
And then, but it is one of those things where you're like, you're either peter out when you're younger, or you're like, I just saw the Who live because I went to see I had Stephen Page on the show and he invited me out to see him open for the Who. So it was fucking, I'm not gonna not go, right?
Yeah.
So like it was awesome. So I got to hang out and whatever. And fucking Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend, they sound the same, and they're in their like. So it's one or the other, man. I don't know what it is, but they were like, he's swinging the mic and catching it and doing all this shit. I was tired like watching it. Like I was like, God, I feel a little winded.
That's wild.
Yeah, isn't it nuts?
That's nuts because they're all like deaf too. Like I'm not even joking. Like, you can look this up.
They blew their ears out. Yeah.
If somebody bet me money what you were gonna say after that, it would not have been deaf. But I was
legends.
They're so talented.
Yeah. Anything. No. They are fucking deaf, dumb, and blind. Let me tell you, they had nothing. Yeah, man. It's just crazy. Do you do it like? What's the process for taking care of your voices and stuff? You know what I mean? Like, do you care?
I think because we don't play live a ton, we don't have to worry too much. But I mean, if we're ever gonna record a song or whatever, we try to not talk too much the day before or whatever.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, that's again.
I mean, we're getting better. I mean, we're in our mid-20s now, so we're starting to care. We're starting to
sons and bitches.
Yeah, but to us, it's like, oh shit, like you go exercise and like 2 days later, you're like, oh damn, like that never used to happen.
Yeah.
So just in general, we're getting a little better about like let's like actually eat good food and go to the gym and do that stuff because it's not sexy, but like you gotta like.
I know, man. I feel that 100%. And I was thinking about that when I was. I'm always trying to eat like better, but when you're on the road, you know how hard it is. Like if you are on the road, it's just bullshit. But I was like, I really have to do something about when I'm out because it's not an excuse. Like it's not like these calories don't count. Anything I eat in the car is it's a neutral zone. It's not. It's killing me.
Right.
I remember buying pizza and like leaving the box on the dash for me and my friend who go on the road together, and I'd just be like, this can't be good. Like, it can't be good to drive for 10 hours and we're just like eating like 8 sandwiches each.
I was actually curious. Earlier, we were talking about a little bit about the industry. I was curious if the comedy industry is as monopolized or centralized as the music industry is. Like, do you have?
Is this a fun conversation?
Yeah, I'm just interested.
It could be.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Like, are there like 3 companies that control everything? Because that is music. That is the music industry.
That's interesting. I didn't know that about the music industry, but yeah. So, it depends on where you kind of are. So, like, there is a monopoly on the East Coast where I live. Like, so it's very hard to like I can tell you by name, and there's only 4, all the big ones that book everything on the East Coast. And then they also kind of dabble a little on West Coast stuff. And then when you get up to West Coast, there may be like 3.
Right.
So, and then the middle of the country is still so, and even then the middle of the country will be dominated by 2 guys from the East Coast. So it's this weird, they're kind of controlling all the shit, and they each have a stake of land, and no one asked them to, by the way, because they're mostly all scumbags.
Right.
So you're just like, and I can say that now because I don't care anymore. After post-pandemic shit has left me just totally devoid of any. So, but like, so that it is kind of like that. And that does become a problem because I don't know if it's the same way with musicians, but like for comedians, if they only see you, if the first time they see you, if you're just emceeing, it takes almost a miracle for them to not see you as somebody they shouldn't pay. And so you're like, God damn, man, you got to be like, I'm no longer doing this. So you literally, and sometimes the way you move up too is like, I've had to stop going to a club anytime I've moved up, and I usually move myself up. But I've been like, okay, I'm featuring now. Oh, great. So this club doesn't think I can, this club doesn't think I can, and this club. So there's 3 places I can no longer work, because if I continue to work there for less money and as an MC, these places won't hire me as a feature.
Right.
So I've just lost 3 different clubs out of a year, whatever. And then I have to go do those clubs and hopefully find 3 more to fill the hole. And then go back to them and then go, I'm this now. And then they'll fuck you when you can move up.
Right.
So it gets like, I don't know. How does it work for like music? How do you get to be like a headlining versus opening act for a musician?
Well, music is similar in that it's just sort of, there's only so many big, like, let's say festivals that you want to get into. There's only so many, there's almost every label is really just 3 labels,
Yeah.
So it's a pretty tightly packed group of people. I think that's another reason we've sort of tried to keep everything in our wheelhouse, is like, at least if we're producing it and we're in control of it, then no one else, no gatekeeper can just be like, oh, we're shutting off the tap right now.
Yeah.
Because if your main source of income is something controlled by somebody else, which is how a lot of musicians live, you can easily get screwed that way, and then get stuck in those weird positions,
Yeah, and you're indentured to like that company. No.
Yeah, and then you have let's say you have a song that pops off, and well, now you're trying to repeat it, because if you don't, they'll drop you. Yeah. Whereas for us, like, if Luke and I have a song that does really well and it makes us, we don't need to feel like we need to make that song part 2. We can just go in, whereas if you're stuck, if they're controlling everything, you got to make that song part 2.
Yeah,
like, you got it.
Absolutely. It's funny that you say that though too, because I feel like that's a lot of the ways TikTok and social media work. If you put something out there that garners a shit ton of followers and gets like 1 million some odd views, they want to see all those people want is for that same thing to be repeated, and it's homogenous and fucking nauseating.
Yeah. I mean, that's that whole brand thing, right? Like, it's so much easier to build an audience around one cohesive thing, and I get it. Like, that's just the way it goes. Like, it can be as stupid as like, that's the guy who wears a red t-shirt and blue jeans every day, and it's like, I know that guy. And if you put on a yellow t-shirt one time, they'd be like, oh, he fucking changed, man.
Sell out.
It's not the same guy. He's telling the same jokes, the same musician. No, I like red t-shirt. But yeah,
that's so true though.
But now,
I think from day one, we've been bouncing around sound wise and look wise. We're terrible for being cohesive. So I think most of our fan base kind of just likes that, which I'm cool with. I mean, we grew up, like I said, like Bowie is a good example of that, where it's just like, whatever, you just bounce around to whatever's interesting.
And there's plenty of music like that. I mean, there's plenty of bands that I love that and I love them because every song kind of sounds the same. Maybe 1 or 2 on an album is a little different, but otherwise, like, why not? I love when I can listen to a band and I'm like, oh my god, this fucking song sounds completely different from anything else on their album. It's great.
Yeah, I think when we are making music, we'll definitely go through periods where we think, let's just make a synth pop song, or let's make, like, Freedom in Your Eyes was like more Roxy music is kind of what we were thinking about. And we can do that, and we can do those things. But a funny thing with the changing your style and all this, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we got a comment on one of our videos, and a guy just said, "Guy in red," which was me in the video, "your hair looked better in this other song." And I was like, oh, we've made it. We made it. People are starting to complain about changes in haircuts and stuff.
Yeah, man. Oh man, I've had people comment on the buttons of the jacket, or when I didn't wear the jacket, and like all that other crap. Like, I'll see it through the thing, and I'm just like, watch the fucking interview. Like, we don't give a shit what I'm fucking wearing, weirdo.
I know.
Yeah.
So,
do you know what's great too? Sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but like a couple of weeks ago, we were just walking around, kind of close to like downtown in Edmonton, where we are, and a car drove by, and this really doesn't happen. A car drove by, and a girl stuck her head out the window and was like, "I love your music," but we were looking directly into the sun, so the look that we both gave, we both went like that, and then she went by, and we're like, oh, that was so not cool. We just blew that.
Oh,
like,
man.
Obviously, take 2, you just go, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. No matter what's in your eyes, like, whatever's going on, just get this down. Hey. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious.
Do you think that the way people are ingesting it is changing though too? Because I apologize, my camera cut while we were talking about this earlier. But with TikTok, like the way people, what they expect people to make it for, do you think the audience is ingesting differently too, where they need like these really quick clip and move on, and attention span cuts out too easy?
I don't think, I think people are being a bit, I think it's easy to think that way. I don't think people's attention spans are really getting that much shorter. They are short when they're on the app, or they're short if they're on the app a lot.
Yeah.
But I think what you love and you're actually interested in, you'll sit and listen to for hours. It's just what you don't love and what you're not interested in, you just want the coolest, tightest little 15 seconds of it. So I think, you know, your favorite comedian, let's say, you'll sit down and watch their whole set and you'll love it. But the comedian you don't know anything about, you just want to see that, like that one great joke and then just swipe past kind of thing. And it's the same with music. Like you want that killer chorus or a cover of a song, you know, and then you move on. If you know the artist, I think you still are willing to put more time behind it. I think. Because look at like people sit down and like stream hours and hours and hours of TV. But I think it's that, and that, I mean, it's that whole drug side of it too, where it's like that illusion of control almost, of like you'd sit and watch 8 hours of TV, but you won't sit and watch 2 hours of a movie. And why? Because you can hit play. It's a weird thing, you know. You'll sit on TikTok for 2 hours scrolling because you have the control of it. So, you know,
it's a good point.
It's a complicated thing. I don't know totally what the whole
I was talking to one of my guys
that will be, but I
was talking to one of my guys. He's like early 20s. And he's like, he's like, my generation would rather watch an hour in 3-minute clips, like swiping to the next 3 minutes, than watch 1 hour of anything. Which I'm like, how do you beat that algorithm, right? How do you figure that out?
Yeah. If you have the answer, let us know.
I really like your take on it, though, and I really wish that the industry would kind of look at it more that way, because I think that's the best probably way to describe it. If you're fucking using TikTok, then yes, of course, you're going to want that 15 minutes or whatever. But if you expose people to deeper stuff, they're going to find something that they want to commit to and they want to spend time on, you know?
Yeah.
Also, hype is very interesting to me now, because I don't know that it matters to like we've all seen the way the industry kind of manipulates a thing they know is bad into hype, right? And you're like, and when they're trying too hard and you're like, this is going to be fucking awful, because it's like a mass media thing where you're just like, oh, they're talking about it too much, it's going to suck. I don't know why they can't put that kind of effort though behind just good shit. Like, for the love of God, like if you've got the talent and the work ethic and the dirt, you know, the wealth of material or whatever, just get behind it and fucking use it. You know, and
I think like talent and quality gives you longevity, but it doesn't give you that like spark and boom, which is what the industry wants. Like they'll pick somebody up, make money off it, drop it, move on. They don't care. The artist cares. I want longevity. You want longevity. And I think that still only comes from talent and quality content. But like people fucking love the drama. You know, they love.
True.
You know, like look at that. What was the Harry Styles and Olivia
Wilde, Chris Pine.
That whole thing, like that movie bombed. Nobody gave a shit about the movie. And watching the trailer, I knew that was gonna be. But anyway, but people, people ate up the drama of it. You know, like they wanted the headlines, but they don't actually want to go watch the movie.
Right.
So I think, and it's weird because people are getting content for free so often now.
Right.
So it's hard actually to gauge what people will spend money on. We're just gauging what people are spending their attention and time on. Like right now, we're having a conversation about where people are putting their time, but time isn't money in the case of paying an artist,
right?
Or paying for content, you know?
Right.
So that's a whole other thing. What I'll sit and scroll past for an hour is not what I'll spend $100 on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that movie thing is an interesting thing too, because I really wish they would lay off. I don't care if your movie bombs and you want to create drama around it, but make it sure it's only entertainment drama and stop using the whole, like, I'm a director and a woman and this is why yada, yada, yada. Like like there's no doubt about it. Women have a harder time in the industry and all that other shit, 100%. But don't use it to sell your fucking movie that you know is bullshit. And also to cover up, you know, again, I'm one of those people, I just don't give a shit what celebrities do with their dick. Or what, you know what I mean? Like I really like it's just one of those things, but like, you know, or your vagina, whatever it is, whatever you got, right?
Yeah.
but I find it interesting that like because the media is so sensationalistic now and kind of lazy that whatever the lowest level of viewers are interested in, that is what they'll grab and they'll make it news just to keep everything kind of buzzing. And it's just like I kind of hate it that now like it's one of those things where it's weird to see Colbert interview Olivia Wilde and try to really like, did he spit on Chris? Just be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Like,
it's sad.
Yeah.
Sad.
And also somebody asked someone how Harry Styles, I love that dude somehow completely escaped any kind of criticism for sleeping with another man's wife, which again, I don't give a fuck about. Have at it, guys. Have fun. Who gives a fuck? You know, it's not my money. I don't give a shit. So, but at the same time, it's like that guy escapes any kind of criticism. But Olivia Munn got like trashed online when she went and had a baby with John Mulaney. I don't. Yeah. I'm like, what is it? Like, what's the fucking? Where's the barometer here, guys?
That's the confusing thing. Is it's just every man for themselves, right?
And we're all caught up in it, and we're just trying to fucking survive and create shit. And then you're like, you have to. I've had people who've like called me like that. If I have like an agent, like, hey, do you want to comment on the? And I'll be like, no, I don't really. But do I have to? Like, fuck. Like, and I'll be like, I did just comment on something I cared about. Yes, but that was Tuesday's thing. Now we're on. Well, time is fucking irrelevant because Howard Stern's putting out videos from 2006 and people are swiping and sharing them like they're fucking new. And McCartney doesn't look like that anymore. So like, I feel like the internet has made time irrelevant. So I never know what I'm being sold. This is a great gripe set. I'm really glad you guys are here.
I mean, this is the conversations we have, right? So this is also why we have to cut the hour down to 15 because we'll spend half an hour talking about the industry and Michael Jackson upon. You're like, nobody wants to hear this,
right?
But I mean, I think some people do.
No, I think they do too. And also, I think that kind of perspective is necessary because it's nice to not have that kind of black and white sort of like, oh, you're on this side of the aisle because like it's nice to have some people just still talk about the artist without going like, it upsets me. Like, you know what I liked about your conversation, that you didn't really have to qualify your feelings for anything. You just had a regular conversation you would hear two guys having in a car. And it wasn't like, just so everyone knows, I'm a good person and I don't think that this, and after every fucking statement.
Yeah, especially with Michael Jackson, we were talking about it before we started rolling. We're like, should we make a comment? It's like, nah, not really. I don't. I'll be honest, I don't care. I mean, even in when we're talking about like comedy and Bill Cosby, it's like, if you want to talk about his comedy, that's a valid conversation. You can still have. I don't think you need to necessarily talk about what he did because the impact was so huge. Like, we're talking about the King of Pop here. It doesn't matter, and especially. Perspective is important. Like, you look back on people from hundreds of years ago, thousands of years, what they did at the time and the impact they had almost becomes irrelevant. Attila the Hun wasn't a cool guy, but it was relevant to talk about it.
I just like that Michael Jackson and Attila the Hun somehow got into it. Like,
very similar.
Both had a beautiful, beautiful voice from what I'm told. Attila the Hun sang like an angel. Right before he was murdered. But I agree with you completely. It is, you cannot deny the impact, and there's no reason. Like, even I have comics on this show who are, grew up on Cosby, and it's funny when Tom is also upset by Bill Cosby, completely leftist again. He will not stand for any kind of
Cosby slander.
Cosby, this is fucking horseshit. But like, it is funny to me that like I'll have these guys on and they're like I'll be like, who are your influences or who did you love? And they're like, we love Cosby. And then immediately you'll see them like, oh, but just so you know, and it's like, I honestly don't think you're doing what I'm not gonna, like, I get the context.
Yeah.
And just because some people want to make something out of it doesn't mean they don't either. They're just making money off of it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So, but this whole thing where everybody's like, oh, just so you know, I don't fucking care. I don't know you. Yeah. I don't know what you're doing.
And most people really don't have a good everyone is entitled to their opinion, but most people don't really have an informed, solid opinion on most stuff that they're talking about. Like, they're just they're regurgitating what they heard. So it's just,
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because we don't communicate with each other anymore, and we don't really have any kind of town square stuff. We don't have any kind of like there's no central point to go to. So now to signal to other people that we're somewhat decent, it's through social media. And to do that through social media is to, and I hate using the term virtue signal, but it is kind of like, I have to make it very, very clear what I do and don't stand for. And it's like, dude, can we just go out and get like a drink or like hang out or like, can we just do whatever? Like, I kind of assumed you were an okay individual. Like I wore a Rick and Morty shirt once when I was out, and one of my friends, this is unbeknownst to me at the time, this is like when it was just out or whatever. And one of my friends was like, kind of like, ignore, like not like it, whatever. And I'd never met her before. And I was like, oh, what the fuck's going on? And then I found out later that she hated Rick and Morty, even though she'd never seen the show, but because their fan base was toxic. And then so through all of that, because I happened to wear a dumb, like, I was like, it's not even a great shirt. I just wore clothes because you have to.
Yeah.
Not my fucking problem. It's society, right? Yeah. So but I was like, oh, and it was this thing where I was like, man, that is a fucked up way to live.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. That's just the world we live in now.
Absolutely.
And it almost full circles, right? Because now you're judging me for something that, who knows? I might not even know anything about Rick and Morty. Yeah, I might just dig the cartoon characters.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I was shirtless and somebody tossed me a thing and I took it for a second. I was like, oh, thank you. I don't know. My other shirt got burned off. Great way to end it, by the way. So I've kept you guys for an hour. You got the new single out. Your album will be coming out in a bit. I hope if you guys are on the East Coast, you'll hit us up. Or maybe I can get out to Canada. That'd be cool because we just get together. I'm going to ask you the last 3 questions I ask every guest. Oh, do we have any questions from the? You
know what's funny, because I apologize to the people in the audience that when my camera crapped out on me, I lost all the questions. But there was a gentleman checking in from Chile that said he loved your music and that he's looking forward to the album coming out. But he said that much earlier. I meant to bring it up and then
cool.
Gotcha. Yeah, no problem. I will cover it with the 3 questions I ask every guest on the show. So first question is, if you guys you can answer them together or individually, whatever you want. So if you can go back in time, talk to your younger selves and give yourself a piece of advice that would help you today, what would it be?
I think my piece of advice would be just stick with the independent route and don't get caught up with everything we talked about earlier. Don't get caught up with getting involved in some sort of industry. Forget the gatekeepers. Just keep doing what you're doing. And if you stick with it, it'll all work out. Because I think we lost a lot of sleep in the early years thinking we got to get signed.
Right.
And once you let go of that sort of idea, funny enough, that's when everything started going well.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But I mean, more broadly, just like your gut is almost always right. You might have to find more information and like tools, manage your resources to go with your gut. You might not have like the necessary tools to do that yet, but usually the thing you feel is right. We've always felt we wanted high control. So yeah, that's what you should do. Don't worry about what other people are doing.
That's great, man. By the way, when you said go the independent route, I was like, oh my God, he's going to leave his brother. I really wish I had said myself. Yeah. I was like, So second question is, what had to end in your lives, good or bad, that led you to where you are today?
The romanticized version of doing it, like the romanticized version of specifically pertaining to music.
Or anything.
Well, no, I mean that.
Oh, gotcha.
It's a huge part of my life, but I would say in general, I think people have, if I made it more general, people have a romanticized view of how they'll do things in their life, the order, how they'd like it to happen. No one's going through life really clean. It's not a book. It's not edited for time.
Sure.
And I think when we realize that our career or our lives wouldn't look like the musicians we idolize, like it wouldn't be this carbon copy version. It would be a different thing, but it would still be music. We started having way more success and felt way better about it when the judgment wasn't, oh, it doesn't look like this, Yeah.
Nice, man. What about you, dude?
That's such a really good answer. To sort of expand on that thought, I'd say, especially with music, I don't know if comedy is to the same extent. I think I've learned that a lot of people in the industry are sort of in it for the wrong reasons. I'm just shitting on the industry. That's what it's sounding like.
I'm loving this.
A lot of the people in the industry don't probably don't have the passion you have. And we've, I don't want to throw people under the bus, but along the way, we've met a lot of individuals that sort of sucked the life out of music a little bit for us. So I think, I expand on what Noah said in terms of not getting caught up in the romanticized idea of what the music industry is going to look like and how people will treat you. Just focusing on, our love of music.
Yeah.
Right.
And do you even think like the people that you idolize, that like this is the way theirs went? Was that just how it was scripted to us? Like how theirs went? They might have been just as muddy as everybody else.
Well, there probably was just as muddy, or they were disappointed because theirs didn't look like their hero's trajectory as well. I mean, that's the reality. Is it just keeps, as technology changes and the way you connect changes and all that stuff. It's just, we're not gonna do a world tour anytime soon. That doesn't mean you're a failure as a musician, or a Grammy win or whatever. All of that stuff is constantly changing. Your markers for success as an artist shouldn't be that. Yeah.
And dude, that's so funny that you say that too, because I think when I was younger, I very much wanted. I mean, now it's out the window; it doesn't even truly matter anymore. But like the HBO special was like the fucking thing to get, And I even an HBO half hour or whatever it is now. Obviously, it's either like a Netflix thing or wherever you can get it. And I know there are certain old school comedians who have never had a special because they were like, "Why in God's name would you burn the material?" And now, even back then too, it was like Carson was the thing, or getting on the late shows, but what I've learned about those processes are very much like, they really fucking restrict your material. It's not as, because when I was a kid, I thought these people were just, winging it and having a good time. And then since then, it's even gotten more rigid. And it's like, wow, none of that. I mean, if you get the opportunity, you take it. Obviously, it's not going to hurt you. But for that to be your goal, I think that is one of those things that like is important for artists to shift and go, I'm still great, and I can still be good, and I can still. That's what I tell like my friends who are starting comedy, or like who are a little younger in the game, where I'm like, you really don't need to worry about, like, no club is ever going to make or break you. Like, you can get really fucking good at a bowling alley and then go dominate on a theater, whatever. You just do well. That's totally great, man.
Sorry, I was gonna say that. Like you mentioned, the getting cut for time. That Bill Hicks on Letterman. I remember watching that and going like, how did that get cut?
Right, dude. I know.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know, man. And you can totally tell Letterman like still feels that weight and that guilt from having, because it's all this up, like these people from above who are just asking questions that it's because, most of the time those people have to justify their positions and their job and their salary. So it's hard when you're talking to people and they're just saying shit just because they think they need an opinion. And it's like, you don't need to fucking say whether it's good or bad or whatever. Just zip
That's
it.
my favorite. I'm just borrowing content from a different podcast now, but Black Keys were talking about who's the drummer in the Black Keys?
Patrick
Carney was talking about this. Exactly. One of those guys who like, it just needs to justify his job. Was like, the hi-hat in the mix, could that be turned down a little bit? And then Patrick Carney reached out to Danger Mouse and was like, what do I do? And he goes like, you know what to do. And he's like, don't touch it and just send it back, like rename it and send it back. He's like, yeah, that's what you do. The guy's just justifying his job.
It's so fucking good. I'm not an actor by any means, but I have had those situations where I've had to do stuff and somebody will be like, ooh, if you could just, what you just said, tone it down, come back in, go out, come back in again, and then just tweet. And I'll be out in the hallway going, what in the flying fuck are they talking about? And then I just go back and do it again. And they're like, see right there, you felt it. And I'm like, I just want to go home. I felt nothing. I might be dead inside. I have no idea what you want, but they really just need that control and that extra little, like, I made them. And you're like, yeah, I guess you did, whatever the fuck you want. Oh God. And so the last question is tied into the show. So if this was a genuine dystopia, more so than it is now, and you guys had your choice of like a government collapse, climate change flooding the world, a comet heading toward the Earth, or aliens, zombies, whatever it is, your choice. But you wake up and you find out it's everybody's last day. How do you spend it? What would be your epic death? How do you want to go out?
Ooh. Well, if it's a meteor heading to Earth, I want to be right at the center of where it is.
Bullseye. Right there, yeah.
like comical, like
just fucking spread eagle naked. There's like, what's with that guy? Does he want to be with his family? No, he's fine. Let him go. Let him go. Yeah. That's fucking great, dude.
I mean, spend the day probably listening to all the music we love, and
with family,
hang out with family and friends.
That'd probably be it.
Nice, man.
That's all that really matters.
I thought you were going to ask what kind of dystopia would you want?
Well, that's part of it too. You get to choose. So it's
okay.
any dystopia, whatever's happening. But like, you know, what would?
Because if I had to pick one, it would be a total electric dropout for sure.
Oh,
easy,
wow.
Easy.
We never had that before. That's a great one.
Just power runs out.
Oh,
could you imagine?
I would love that.
Just the chaos of it would be.
I'm not a religious person whatsoever. I've prayed for an EMP to hit like the Twitter locate, like just knock it the fuck out.
Yeah.
And then everybody has to go back to telegrams, like, you know.
when
Dear Elon Musk,
I feel
stop.
like that legit happened.
Yeah, what'd you say? You feel like what?
Oh no, I feel like when Sandy happened, I feel like that legit happened, and like the city didn't know what was going on. Like I remember being like, I don't know what to do, and the only thing I was mad about is I didn't own a gun, and I'm like, I don't own a gun. I'm just holding my stuff for the next person that owns a gun.
I wasn't mad about that too much. I was mad when my parents lost their house. You son of a... No, I'm just kidding, Tom. I figured that was a nice little dick. Was he worried about his gun? Oh my god! I remember a dude. I remember seeing a guy going down the side because like it was so weird with the water levels.
Yeah,
some places got him, some places didn't. I just remember it was like driving around, looking around, and seeing a guy in a fucking kayak, like going to his house, and I was just like, "That is that you're never gonna like. I can't even help him. I have no like. Good luck, buddy. I don't know where you're going, but he's just going to check out the damage."
Dystopia. Like I remember, I live on like a hill, an incline, about 2 miles, a mile and a half from the ocean. They were launching fireboats from the hill in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is out of control. I was like, it was legit dystopia. And I'm like, oh, this is it. This is it. I'm just going to stay here on the second floor.
I got shit for 2 tweets when that happened. One, and that's when I used Twitter, but one was I said, hey, anybody want to go to EC this weekend? I've got a room. It's on my front lawn, but I do have a room in Atlantic City. And then the second one was when they did the concert, the Relief concert, and Bon Jovi's first song was "Who Says You Can't Go Home," and I went, "FEMA, you fucking asshole."
Oh, God.
And then people were like, he's trying to do a good thing. And I was like, it's not like, I get it. You insult a rock star from Jersey, and that's it. Oh God, you guys are fucking awesome, dude. I'm so glad you guys get to come on and hang out. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. We had a great time.
Sweet. Yeah, anytime you guy want to come back, let me know.
Right on.
Absolutely. Cool. Have a great one, guys.
Yep. Thanks so much. Peace. Bye.
Dystopia tonight.